Hi. So, I had deep brain stimulation. It'll be 3 weeks ago Monday. Um, uh, I've tried to make several videos about this, just trying to get it all out right, But 'cause there's so much I want to say, but I don't think it'll all fit in one video. Basically, deep brain stimulation is where neurosurgeons implant wires and batteries. The wires go in your brain, and then the wires run down under the skin of your neck to your chest or your abdomen where they implant batteries. And it's basically a brain pacemaker. It's considered a last resort experimental surgery for Tourette Syndrome for people like me who have tics that adversely impact their day-to-day functioning and have not responded to any medications or other interventions. Basically, have exhausted all medical options except for surgery. And for those for whom their tics are substantially life-limiting, disabling. Um, uh, I've had tics severe enough to put me on the ground convulsing. Noises so loud that my college professor said they could not teach with me in class. So I had a lot of trouble going to class this past semester. Um, Crazy on me for even trying college. But I wanted to do it because everybody said, you're smart, and I want to get an education. So several things pushed me forward going for deep brain stimulation. But I had it done. I already said 3 weeks ago. It went great. Everything turned out just how it should. So far, so good. It's not a one and done though. Uh, Even after the batteries and the wires are in place, I have wires. There's basically they drilled holes in my head here and here. Well, I'm trying to reach the incisions here and here, but and they essentially shoved wires down through my brain tissue to the area called the thalamus, the central median thalamus on each side. Because if you did one side of my body, presumably the side that controls would have symptom improvement, if it worked, and then the other side wouldn't. So, at least that's how it works with like dystonia. So, the anyway, uh, did both sides, as you can see, because your brain has two hemispheres. One side controls the other side of your body. This side of my brain controls this side of my body. This side of my brain controls this side of my body. So, uh, sorry, that was really random. They put the wires in on the 16th. I was awake for parts of that procedure, although somewhat sedated, for symptom control as well as, just to, keep me relaxed. And then I went to the ICU overnight. I had some headache post-operative, although it was not nearly as bad as I'd expected. This was my first major surgery, so I was pretty terrified of like, oh my gosh, how bad is this gonna be? But it really was not as bad as I'd expected. I don't know, maybe I have a high pain tolerance. I really don't know. I don't feel like I have a really high pain tolerance. It was not as extensive a surgery as many brain surgeries are. Deep brain stimulation is actually minimally invasive in terms of brain surgery, neurosurgery, because they just make small holes versus other procedures they might do, like a full craniotomy, in which much larger portions of bone from the skull are removed, and it's just a minimally invasive procedure in terms of neurosurgery. So that may explain why I had relatively little pain and everything. Plus they left local anesthetic in the incisions, which whatever they did, it worked. uh, they offered me Percocet in the ICU, and I took a Percocet and proceeded to vomit, which I really did not enjoy because I hadn't even been sitting up yet because I had just left brain surgery basically a few hours before. So I was just lying down, and then I sat up when I vomited, and I was like, oh man, God, that was why am I saying all this? Anyway, basically I ended up taking Tylenol with codeine for pain control uh, that night after the Percocet left my system. And then the next day I had the batteries implanted because they implant the wires, and they coil them basically to keep them out of the way, um, for the next stage of the operation, which is when they put the batteries in. So for the batteries, they made incisions. Well, there's one back here, um, here, and then I'm trying to reach with the camera, like there. Um, and they run extensions for the wires, uh, down to my abdomen where they implanted the batteries. Um, for that procedure, I was completely asleep, with general anesthetic. They offered me the option of being sedated or with local anesthetic, or just completely out with general anesthetic. And I said general anesthetic. I don't want to remember any of this, although I'm sure they would have managed perfectly well with heavy sedation. But I woke up from that. That was actually, well, the brain surgery was more taxing, but the batteries were more difficult in the days that followed. The battery incision, because my abdominal muscles were, everything was really sore. I mean, not super sore, but it hurt to sit up, or like to sit up from lying down, or to stand. I used my arms a lot to sort of pull myself up because my abs. I didn't like to use my abs because that kind of hurt. Because it would pull on the incision. Uh, anyway, I was discharged from the hospital the same afternoon as the battery surgery. Because I went to the hospital um, Monday morning, had the brain part done, stayed in the ICU overnight, batteries the next morning, Tuesday, and discharged Tuesday night, back to where we were staying in Manhattan, from McDonald's house. Really awesome place. And I slept for like the next 3 days. Pain meds plus surgery plus just, I can sleep a lot anyway. I like to sleep, so I slept through most of the worst of, I guess it would have been the worst of the pain. And then within, I want to say, the that Saturday, I think, I was up and walking around, walked a few blocks, although my head would start hurting, not exactly hurting, but kind of like pressure feeling if I walked more than like 3 blocks. So that was kind of uncomfortable. But I'd go back, lie down, take a nap, take some of my pain meds, Um, and by I mean, this will be 3 weeks Monday, since I feel basically 100%, completely normal. Uh, the first week after surgery was the worst pain-wise. After 10 days, I went back for post-op. They removed, because there were these giant bandage things that covered my incisions. That they took those off. That was probably the most painful part of that week. Uh, and then they took out the staples, no big deal, and they turned on the batteries. I'm currently at 1 volt. Uh, I believe it's the third contact on the electrodes. Because there's 4 different contacts on each electrode, each wire that they inserted. The lowest one, when they activated that, as they said, as expected, it's the most sensitive because of where it sits in my brain. Things went kind of spinny, uh, kind of vertigo-y, like I was standing on some sort of moving bus. Except I was just sitting there on the exam table. I'm like, okay, things are kind of, funny. But and then when they turned off the stimulation, just because they go through the different contacts, testing each contact to make sure it's working right, I guess. And when they turned that off, it was like whatever I was like, like the moving sensation just dropped off automatically. That was interesting to see. Uh, anyway, I'm running at the third contact and 1 volt, and I feel no different whatsoever. But that's totally good because I don't want to feel different. That's not the goal. I want to be alert and everything. I don't want to feel disoriented or any sort of vertigo or anything. So I have had a significant tick reduction that presented itself basically immediately post surgically. That's called the microlesion effect. A lot of people colloquially call it the honeymoon effect, where with insertion of the electrodes, your brain bruises and it temporarily relieves symptoms, which it doesn't last more than a month or so. I've already seen some of my tics returning, but they're not as bad as they were before surgery. Put it in perspective, a couple days before surgery, my family and I, me and my mom and dad and I, and Mac, my service dog, had been going to, had taken the Staten Island ferry. I collapsed 3, 4 times just taking the ferry. I didn't walk very far anyway, even with my crutches. So that was, I was significantly impaired in my ability to go very far without having significant movements and, inability to, just really difficult time with tics, even just a couple days before surgery versus a week later. I was, tromping all over Manhattan with my mom, going to the Empire State Building, walking, 11 blocks, really far. Um, just having had major surgery, already doing better. Um, Now that effect may wear off, and, I may see an increase in tics, um, but hopefully with programming, if everything goes well, I should see a reduction again if that happen if the effect wears off and the programming isn't at present enough to curb the tics. But it should. I hope to maintain that effect. Is what I'm saying. Uh, and I'm still ticking. I did not expect, and anyone looking to undergo this should not expect a cure, a full remission of tics with DBS. As far as I know, there's only been one case with that happening. Jeff Madovic, the first person in the U.S. who had it done, very, very spectacular results, but they're not the typical. He did phenomenally. So I'm not looking for a full remission. I'm just looking for, I don't collapse, convulsing when I, do something as mundane as, try to walk a few blocks, or, screaming so much that I get kicked out of class, or, having eye tics so bad that I can't see to even walk or operate my wheelchair. So, and I haven't actually needed my crutches or wheelchair since the surgery, barring one evening that I really ever did it. And there's still gonna be the ups and downs of symptoms, but so far so good. Um, and programming will be ongoing. I'll keep updating you guys, but yeah.